Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 88 of FPL BlackBox. My name is Az, and I'm joined by the man himself, climbed into the 4 million territory, nearly in the 3 million mark. How are you, Mark?
Yeah, I'm good. Green arrow for me. I'm thrilled with that week. Yeah, I managed to claw back some of the deficit of that terrible game week 14 that I had. So, yeah, I'm quite pleased. I might actually break into the top 4 million before Christmas. Obviously, that was the objective when I started the season. 4 million by Christmas. Bloody hell. Yeah.
And it's probably one of my worst weeks of FPL ever. So, I'm glad you're happy.
Well,
I'm not.
I wouldn't say that contributed to my merriment, but it was quite nice to get one over you for once. And it still means that, talk about goals for the season. I look at the gap between us and think, I might be able to claw that back. 70 odd points. I might be able to make it. You never know.
Please no.
We should explain, aren't we, that you're not in the UK at the moment, are you? You're elsewhere, which is why the camera and the sound isn't quite up to our normal quality. But show must go on, right? Where are you? What are you up to?
I'm in Sweden. I'm at Lynn's place. I've got a very funky Panther-type beer to drink while we do this stream. As you can see, it's very Swedish and yellow.
Very Swedish. What is it? A sauna, is it? That would make it
Pretty
Swedish.
much.
I can't see any IKEA-like furniture. Is that what you're getting at?
Oh, it's everywhere.
Is it all over the place? Did you have meatballs for dinner?
Yeah, but to earn my dinner, I've got to help Lynn with flat packing the furniture.
It's like that in Sweden everywhere you look, isn't it? Yeah. Hot dogs and meatballs and flat pack furniture. Absolutely. Hey, did you play ABBA earlier? Because that's what they listen to. Roxette and ABBA,
on repeat.
Yeah,
on repeat. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we should talk about what we're going to do in the show just briefly before we get onto our sponsor. But yeah, I'm hosting tonight, so I haven't done it for a while, so I'm out of practice. So apologies if I'm a bit rusty. But we've got one more game week to go before Christmas. So basically, before the World Cup, that is not Christmas. I mean, it feels like Christmas having a World Cup, doesn't it? But we're dead ending into game week 16. Hence the name of the show, because you can take a few risks, can't you? You could take a couple of risks if you got two transfers. You could even consider taking a hit. Probably not advised, but you could. So this week's show, we're going to look at the data with a view of maybe identifying one or two players that you can take a risk on before the World Cup and before the Christmas break. That's about right, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, not to ruin the show and put people off, but I struggled a bit to really find some exciting and great options for this final week. And one of the best ones I sold last week. So that's about where I'm at.
You did indeed. And he came in and I wasn't at all pleased about that. But before that, are you sitting comfortably, Az?
I am sitting comfortably.
Well,
yes.
I tell you what, I reckon there's something up your sleeve that could make you sit that little bit more comfortable. Should we get on to our sponsor? You can tell us all about it.
Oh, yes, it is. It is, of course, Manscaped. They are our sponsor this week. For anyone who's been a regular viewer and listener of the show, you'll know that Mark and I have had a running joke about Manscaped and not feeling like we'd made it until we had them sponsor.
It was a rites of passage, wasn't it, basically?
It was, absolutely. And this is now our second stream that's been sponsored by Manscaped. So if you're not familiar with who Manscaped were, and my dad wasn't, my mum had to...
Oh, so is that his Christmas present sorted then?
Oh, please. That is not an image that I need, and no one else knows him. But but yeah, I would like to have been a fly on the wall listening to my mum explain Manscaped. Manscaped is essentially grooming products for men, the kind of nether regions of men. You get a shaver, which reduces cuts and nicks and things like that. You get some creams as well, which make it all smell nice. They reduce the itching, that kind of stuff. And you get a little nose hair trimmer as well. So if you're a man and you're a bit hairy in certain parts, Manscaped is the perfect product for you. 20% off. Follow the link in the description. Use the code BlackBox. And give it a go. And, if you are a man and you are in need of grooming products, there really is no other, no better product out there. So give Manscaped a go.
There you go. Brilliantly done by Az there. And yes, indeed. So I look forward to Chris opening his present on Christmas Day. And yeah, I wish you'd have recorded your mum describing to your dad, and then that could have done the ad for us, really. To be honest.
I think as well, because he's a little bit deaf, even though he claims he's not. I can just imagine my mum going, "Ball shavers, Chris. It's a ball shaver.
Hairy balls, Chris." Anyway, should we move on? Talking of balls, let's look at your game week, shall we?
Oh, Do we have to? I mean, it's
Oh dear.
well, the team it looks all right. So I'll go through the team quickly. Henderson, it's been useless, man. Another goalkeeper.
You got it wrong again. Honestly, 16 how many bench points has Ward got for you that you haven't had in your team now? Must be in the 30s. Must be.
Yeah, well, I think this is the third Ward points I've benched, but then I benched the 2 Henderson big ones as well. So I'm probably about 40 or 50 points down on this rotation, which is nice. That's been a nightmare. Trippier, Castagna and Gahey, as you know, Castagna got the clean sheet, Trippier got the big haul again.
Another one. What's that? 6 from 7? Is it for Castagna?
Crazy.
What a return!
Absolutely crazy. And then it all starts getting a bit dodgy because I had Foden and Martinelli in midfield. De Bruyne and Trossard are new. They both returned, which was fine, an assist each. But who did I sell to get those two? I sold Salah and I sold Zaha. So absolute nightmare on that. Unfortunately, I'd made my transfers before the site went down. So if that had happened, then I would have probably benefited. I also then took a -4 a hit to sell Mitrovic, who I saw wasn't in the starting 11, for Wilson, who got 45 minutes. And if I hadn't taken Mitrovic out, I would have got Ben White off the bench with 5 points. So those transfers cost me around 25 points.
So let's get this clear. If you'd have been in another part of the world, if you'd been in Sweden and you'd have missed the deadline and missed all the leagues, and we'll talk about those in a minute, you would have been better off, would you, by quite a margin? Because you would have had
25 points better.
So
off.
Who would you have captained?
Well, it was on Haaland and the vice was on Kane.
Right.
So
So you wouldn't. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
but
yeah. It's just. I mean, the thing is though, I sold Zaha early, and if I'd waited for the team news, then I would have sold Foden, obviously. So that's on me. That was just me sort of being a bit impatient and wanting to get rid of Zaha and stuff. But I thought Foden would start, and when I saw he wasn't in the lineup, that's when I kind of was like, oh yeah, I should have waited. And so that's a bit of a rookie error. But Salah to De Bruyne, I thought, with De Bruyne captain, I thought I was going to be be laughing with Haaland on the bench. I thought De Bruyne could rack up a huge score.
But you knew the risks of selling Salah, though, because we talked about it last week. We did say that you went 2-2 and I went 3-2.
Mm.
So you thought there was going to be goals to Liverpool. So you must have known there was like a risk of that.
Yeah, it's the manner of the goals. It's the manner of the goals that was so disappointing. I mean, just two terrible defensive mistakes from Spurs, just gifting him a.
I'm just going back to the WhatsApp chat when Salah's second goal went in. I'm trying to remember what you said when that second goal. I don't think we can repeat it on there.
We've said ball shavers, so you never know.
Yeah, but this is worse than that. Right.
I was that second goal particularly, and then I go on Twitter and Gary Lineker's tweeted Dyer. And I was like, that makes it even worse.
And I was doing an Andy, like Andy does on Twitter. I was like, I think I texted you, Mo, come alive. And you went, you replied with something quite offensive.
I did, to you and Mo, unfortunately. But I mean, we're going to talk about Salah later. And, the Opta Joe has posted some really interesting stuff about it, which I wasn't expecting. But I still don't think Liverpool are quite right. But 15 points away at Spurs, and only an assist for De Bruyne, I feel a bit hard done by. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's look at my team.
Oh.
So I did better.
Look at your team this week.
The arrow's pointing to you. That's complete. I should have changed the arrow. Let me do the arrow live in the. There we go. Let's get this right because it's the 1 week I've beaten you. I can't have that.
There it goes.
There we go. There it goes down. 71 points. Raya, nothing. I disappointed with Raya, but it was I wanted Forest to win, didn't I? So it's very difficult taking a goalkeeper in against your team. So I was that was a consolation, I guess, that Forest did get a couple of goals. I thought he was going to get a monster score at one point because he was keeping us out in the first half, and then we finally got the goal. But he made I think he made 5 saves in the first 20 minutes, and I thought, blimey, this is incredible. Incredible that Forest are having shots on target, and incredible that Raya may keep a clean sheet and get bonus, but didn't turn out. One for Diaz, didn't turn up again.
Let me find the messages when Brentford scored, because I think you were also quite upset about that.
I was quite upset with the penalty because I didn't think it was a penalty. My word. Did you see it? I mean, Henderson patted him on the knee and Visser didn't even, he may not even have felt it because he went on and tried to score. And yet, obviously, I don't think it was enough to bring him down. So I don't think it was a penalty. But then there was 3 other incidents in the match. And if you think that tap on the knee was enough to bring Visser down, why wasn't the others given? And De Bruyne's penalty was a bit dodgy, wasn't it? I mean, it was very comparable to Dennis's, I think.
I think it was a ridiculous. I mean, I had De Bruyne captain, so I was very grateful for it. But I just don't understand how VAR can check that and deem that a penalty in the 95th minute or whatever it was. It's just absolutely ridiculous to me. But hey ho.
Yeah, and when you compare it in context to the ones in the Forest game, it is they're all comparable. None of them should have been penalties, really.
No, there's no. We talk about all the time. There just doesn't seem to be any consistency with these decisions at all.
No. Anyway, 1 for Diaz, who didn't turn up again. We'll talk about that in a minute. Trent 2, Trippier 12, which is standard, right? Creswell with the 1, very disappointing. I wanted more from Creswell. Zaha 12, who I would have sold. Rashford 2, who was my transfer in, very disappointing. Should have gone Almiron, don't know why I didn't. Salah, captain 30, Martinelli 3, Haaland 5, Wilson 1, who was the other transfer. So my moves for a hit were Rashford in for Wilson. I can't even remember what my moves were. Can't remember who I brought in and who I took out. Let me just have a quick reminder of who it was.
You brought in Rashford and Wilson and you took out
it's so long ago now. Tony, of course, who was suspended, and Foden, who didn't play. Now, I made those transfers and I made that captaincy purely because I got the information on Saturday morning. And again, it didn't feel very nice to be given that information and then you kind of feel like you have to act on it, of course, right? Because you'd be foolish having been given that information to not act on it, and I did. But it's very controversial, isn't it? And it is now causing a problem where there's a lot of people in the community calling for FPL to have another look at the deadline time. And I kind of feel the same. I mean, I wouldn't have captained Salah if I'd have thought Haaland was going to start. So, and I wouldn't have sold Foden. I would have sold Zaha. So I would have been very much worse off without that information. And so although I got 71 points, although I got the captaincy right, and although, I sold Foden and Tony and I got Rashford and Wilson in and they didn't do great, it would have been worse because I would have sold Zaha for Rashford and kept Foden. So I'd have been, I am not even going to calculate it, but it was only because I had that information that I did well. So it kind of does dampen the fact that I did well because I only did well because of the data, which I shouldn't really have, the information. Where do you stand on this now? And it's getting worse, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's getting worse when the site crashes as well, although I guess that's kind of almost karma for people using the information in some ways.
I guess so, yeah.
But it kind of, it's all a bit dodgy. I mean, I've always said I think they should make the deadline the kickoff time. I know that there's going to be people that don't benefit from it. People like Luke said, working in the job he does, he's not always near his phone. There's going to be people abroad, but there's no answer that's really going to help everyone. And I think just giving everyone the longest possible time to get the information is, to me, the most sensible thing. Because I mean, you could knock it back another hour, but we could still get team leaks 2 hours, 3 hours, 4. It's like a never-ending cycle where you keep pushing it back. In the end, you have it 24 hours before the games kick off. That seems ridiculous. And I've seen some people saying that, have it the evening of the.
But I think that the further away you are from kickoff, the less unsure you would be about following that news. If you got a leak Friday night, would you be confident acting on it? I guess if there were a source that were proven correct before, you might do, but you'd be less secure about acting on it, wouldn't you?
I think as well, though, you've got to remember that there's a lot of people who play it not like we do. They're not obsessional about it. Like I've got friends who log on a Saturday morning and do their transfers. A lot of them miss the deadline. A lot of them, but if you made it later, you're giving people more chance to get their transfers in and lock them in. I don't know. I don't think there's any real right answer, is there? Because you can argue for both. But personally, I just like to see it as a blanket start when the games start.
Okay, well, I put it to you that the servers went down because of the leaks. I mean, I think there's got to be a correlation between suddenly this feeling that I need to leave my transfer to the last minute because I will get information via a content creator or via Twitter or whatever, and the fact that the servers went down with 15 minutes to go. And we saw Andy Murray, of all people, complaining about it.
Did you see I offered him to come on BlackBox?
Yeah, I did. Good archery. Good try. Nice try.
Didn't reply. Didn't reply to me. Yeah.
No. Well, he's like that, but that makes me feel worse about the leaks, because I think, you know, the servers are set up for a regular, consistent load. They've got data over time on what that load should be, and then the fact that people know that they should leave it to the last minute to get this information has meant that load has increased, because there's probably you say not a lot of people do this, but there obviously must be a big enough volume of people waiting to the last minute to have caused that server crash, because that wasn't regular traffic that caused that to crash. It was an increase, and that increase is made by the fact that there were people knowing that they should wait until the last minute because they'll get information. So the leaks are now not only making us feel like it feels like cheating, they're also bringing the servers down.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there's now enough people that are hearing that. Because, I mean, for it to go down 5 minutes before the deadline, okay, you kind of get that. But this was, 20 minutes?
It was 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
I thought to myself, when the news broke about Foden and Haaland not starting, I think it was half an hour to go. And I was like, is it low? Is that real? Is it really? Are they really not playing? And I kept refreshing, and I thought, I left it till 15 minutes to go because I thought, any later than that and the servers could go down. And then when I went to make the moves, it was crashed. And then I panicked, and I was using the app. I always use the app, and so I managed to get my transfers in. There were people on Twitter. There was one guy on Twitter who said, "Oh, I've noticed that some of the none of the big accounts have been affected by the server crash, and they all managed to make their transfers." Was he indicating that we have this special pipe? We have the special connection to FPL, and it never goes down, so we're all right. It's almost like the nuclear bomb shelter for the privileged. Like we haven't got our own. Have you got your own?
Special server. Yeah, special server. That's why I took Zaha out.
With your internet connection in Yeovil, there's no way you've got a special server. Not Yeovil. I was talking about Hitchin. That's Andy. Sorry, I'm mixing you with Andy.
Oh my god, this gets worse.
Well, you look so similar. I get it wrong.
We do.
But yeah, I mean, you know, we were in it as well. I was up to my neck in panic, going, "Oh my god, I can't make my captain change." Yeah, and it was awful.
I was up in Birmingham at a cricket place, Sixes cricket, and I was like, there's four of us there, and I was like, I was like a misery because I was frantically refreshing to try and work out if my captain change had gone through. And have you seen Praz's story on FPL Juice?
No.
Oh, everyone, check out FPL Juice and listen to Praz's story because it's absolutely hilarious. It involves him carrying around a flowchart with him of different moves that he wants to make, which is typical Praz. Him palming off his kid at a birthday party to try and make his moves, and Mitrovic captain with Cancelo vice.
Is that what he ended up with?
Yep.
I shouldn't laugh. Wow.
It couldn't happen to like a more like organised and better FPL manager than Praz. Like if it can happen to him, it can happen to anyone.
This is it. So there was no privilege, right? We're all in it, and it was a bit of a lottery whether you got your moves in or not. I managed to, and I benefited, but it doesn't feel great. And they're going to have to do something because it's going to keep happening. If a big team has the early kickoff, a team that has significant impact on our lineups or our transfers,
they do again this weekend. Yeah.
Then it's going to go down, and then you're going to get more tweets and more negative sentiment. And I hope now they can look at the server load and go, right, we need to allow for more traffic, given that these leaks are going to happen. But I know what that's like. You know, like I used to run Scout on 1 or 2 boxes, and as the site got more popular, Saturday mornings were a nightmare. The anxiety, you can imagine how calmly I dealt with that situation.
I'm just, tranquil, like meditating.
There's water running off a duck's back. That was exactly what it was like. No, it was awful. It was, it was dreadful. So I know what unexpected and unanticipated, traffic can do to your anxiety levels, and that's what the FPL were going through. Hopefully they've looked at it and gone, right, we need to add more boxes in time for Saturday. But who knows if that's going to be enough? It could happen again. And it
happened. Well, it happened the week before as well, didn't it? With 5 minutes to go. So you would kind of think, they would look at it then, and it's got worse.
You can't stop the leaks, though, can you? They're going to come from another source each time.
This is what I mean, and I think you could get leaks. This is why I just don't think pushing the deadline back more and more is the answer. I think you have to give everyone as much opportunity to learn the information as you can, and if you give people the first lineups, they're the most common leaks, and then everyone's got the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, on Saturday, if it's a 3 o'clock kickoff and across the board, there's nowhere to get a lot of information. So you'd be in a bit of a panic trying to. I guess you got half an hour before when the lineups come out to react, but
it would change FPL though, because I play goal scorer challenge, and you're always that runs right up until the deadline. When you can pick your player who's going to score, and you often find yourself picking a player in that game because they're starting.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it. Because it's so unfair to people in other regions. Like in the UK, if there's no early kickoff and there's 6 or 7 5 or 6 games kicking off at 3 o'clock, the advantage then is massive, isn't it? The fact that we've got access to those teams.
But it's not fair in its current state. And actually, in fact, if you're not on Twitter, for example, you're not going to see them. So it is fairer just to have the lineups come out and everyone has them, I think, rather than a few people just get them from Twitter.
I don't know.
It's difficult.
I think I prefer 24 hours. And then you hope that would give enough doubt to people they wouldn't react to any leaks that they consider leaks. I think I prefer that.
I think that works if you take FPL as being this like ultra serious competitive game. Like if we were playing it, like 20 of us, like hardcore managers, but with 10 million players, you're gonna alienate people if you have the deadline.
But equally, you are going to if you're trying to grow the game in America and Australia and India, aren't you? And they are. So these are big territories. So it's not. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes.
No.
I used to be in their shoes, and I'm not anymore. And I'm pretty glad about it. Did you notice the ploy there? Put my team up for ages, and then engage you in a long. I'm not going to dwell on this net screen. This is the great and the good. Oh, dearie me. So we'll get through this really quickly, you'll notice. We're not doing very well, are we?
No.
Savanish is the meat in the black box sandwich as usual. I'm bottom, you're third from bottom. Look at the captaincies. I mean, that tells a tale, isn't it? In terms of who got the information and who didn't. It's not good. I mean, but I look at it and think, look at the gap between us now. It's what, 38, 72. I can get that back. If you're asking me my goal for the season, it's catch as, and then let's see where that gets me in the world.
You've done it before.
It probably gets me 2 million in the world the way you're going. So.
You've done it before. You did it with Granville all those years ago, 100 points or something it was. I remember listening back in the day. Yeah, I mean, I think it was particularly disappointing because this week felt like a big week, for a lot of people. If I'd had Salah and Zaha, I would be well within the top million. I'd probably be about 800k, 750k, something like that, and really looking to push on. And actually, I've ended up with a red arrow, and a lot of people. I mean, look at General now. General's like gone up to 840k. Like I was quite close to him. Andy's gone up 600,000 places, and his team wasn't that different to mine, and I was ahead of him. So, and you've gone up 500,000. There was some big swings this week, and I didn't have a terrible week. Like I went down 130,000 places or something, but it was a week where I felt like I could have gone up quite a bit. But you
can take comfort that Magnus Carlsen did worse than you. So, keeping good company there. But
yeah, it does help. That's why, sometimes you look at the great, the good, and you see Praz with Cancelo, and you think, bless him.
Deary me. Okay, so we've got one game week left. Let's look at some data. Should we look at, data over the last 6 game weeks, shall we? Let's just look at that. So we're looking at attack first. So this is last 6 matches rather than last 6 game weeks. And you've had a look and you've highlighted a couple of teams there. We'll talk about them in a minute. You've highlighted Brentford and Everton. No massive surprises here. We've got the fixture difficulties. penned in as well, so you can see how the standings relate to the difficulty of the fixtures that they had. The higher the number on the fixture difficulty, the more difficult the fixtures. So Arsenal were top with 1.80 xG non-penalty per 90, and they had the 10th best fixtures or 10th worst fixtures. So pretty good. I mean, for Arsenal to end this period and go into the World Cup as the top attack in the league ahead of City, not what we would have expected, right? Incredible.
No, and they'll be confident of getting a result against Wolves and making sure they're top of the table. Going into the World Cup as well. I mean, it's been a fantastic. They just seem to be getting better and better each week. Okay, the Southampton game was a bit of a blip, but just so impressed with so many of their players. You know, Xhaka's a man reborn in this new role. Martinelli, Saka's been improved even more, gone up another level. The interesting one, something that we mentioned quite a lot, is Jesus. I just find it baffling that he doesn't have more returns than he has. But like we talked about last week, I guess a lot of it does come down to the fact that he just isn't a great finisher. But the chances he gets in that team is unbelievable. You would think he'd have 10 goals by now, and
he is missing chances now, isn't he? It's funny,
like
early in the season they were going in for him, and he was actually scoring one or two goals that I thought weren't Jesus-like goals. Like I think his first goal of the season, I'm not sure, was it against Leicester? I can't remember who he played, but it was a great curling effort from range, and I thought, well, that's a goal that Jesus wouldn't normally score. And I really did. I mean, I didn't start the season with him because I thought he would be as he is now. But I got cold feet because I saw the goals he was scoring and the performance he was putting in, and I'm thinking he's gone up a level. He's actually scoring goals now that he wouldn't score before, and he's getting more opportunities because he's starting every game. So I lost my courage and my conviction on Jesus and went for him, and then since then, predictably, he's gone to the kind of player that I suspected he could be, which is the Man City mode, isn't it? Really, he's missing chances. He's not converting, and he's doing a lot of great work outside the box. He is definitely making Saka, Martinelli, Xhaka, they're benefiting from Jesus, aren't they?
Absolutely, but it looks to me like the players are trying to get him involved more. I mean, he got slipped through a lovely ball in the last match, and just tried to smash it in near post, and it was ended up being quite a comfortable save. But he is getting played in. He's still making the runs. He isn't just a player who's looking to drop deep and feed other players like we see with some other strikers in the league. He is someone who wants to get goals and has the creativity around him to get them. But yeah, I don't know. He's a bit of an enigma, really, because it was a bit like Dusan Tadic all those years ago when his stats were like off the charts like every week. And you sense a haul is coming, and it did. Remember, he got that 22 Southampton 1-8 or something.
I had him that game.
Yeah, and he was like the kind of like boy of Scout and stats, wasn't he? Because every week it's like, a haul's coming, a haul's coming, a haul's coming. Then it finally did, and you think that's got to be the same with Jesus. I mean, his XGI numbers are ridiculous, really, and Arsenal could score 4 or 5 in every game. I'm sure a haul's coming. He's frustrating.
It is, and when we looked at forwards that you could buy this week, in dead end forwards, as we called them, he's on the list because of that. Because you think that the way he's performing and the way Arsenal are playing, more to the point, they could go to Wolves and win 4-0, and he could get a hat trick. Now, it doesn't look likely based on his returns that we've seen recently, but we know it's in him, and we know that Arsenal can create the chances. It's just whether or not they go in on the day. But this table shows how strongly Arsenal are as an attacking force. They're ahead of City, 1.80 xG non-penalty per 90, City on 1.65. Then it's quite significant. Liverpool, with the worst fixtures of any team in the last 6, are third, 1.59 xG non-penalty per 90. They're creating 3 big chances a game, which is more than any other team over the last 6. That, for all the fact that we're doubting Liverpool and for all the struggles they've had, the up and downs, the erratic form, they're still there in terms of numbers. These numbers still suggest that going into this second half of the season, we can't sleep on them. We can't write them off, can we?
And I'm surprised every week because they don't look good to me. They still look, like the creativity isn't really there, and the Nunes and Salah partnership isn't working. And okay, they were gifted the goals in the last game, but other than that, they didn't have too many like clear cut opportunities. Nunes did look livelier, and the link-up was a bit better, but it still wasn't a game where I thought Liverpool deserved to score 4 or 5 in that match. It was just a poor Spurs performance, particularly in the first half. So, yeah, I mean, I look at this and I think there's got to be something there. There's got to be a time when this does turn around. And my big decision this week is whether to buy Salah back, because Southampton at home looks an incredible fixture. You know, Hassan Hüttl's gone now. You never really know whether that's going to boost them or make them even worse. But it's not going to be too fun going into that match without him. Even though he only had 2 shots against Spurs and got the 2 goals in them.
But he looked good. Yeah, I mean, he does look like there's a bit more about him, and he's in better fettle than he was. I don't know what it was. We talked about it a lot over the spell that he's had, and we'll talk about the Opta data at the end of the show when we look at the captains, because I'm seriously considering captaining him this week. But I think I watched the game and he just looks a bit more. He looks sharper. He looks more involved. Obviously, he's playing down the middle, right? That does make a difference. I do think the fact that he was dwelling out on the touchline a lot in many of the games that he didn't return in, and now that they're playing Darwin out wide and him down the middle, and he kind of has been swapping with Firmino, but he has been spending a lot of time in that central area. It makes a difference. It makes a hell of a difference. So,
it does, because when the ball drops for him, like it did in those 2 chances, he's in the right position. He's not out on the touchline or dropping deep or anything. He's there to take advantage of it, which is where you want to see him. Yeah. I felt like with him and with Zaha as well, playing up front, that was like 2 positional shifts really.
And I benefited from both, right?
Yeah,
definitely.
Typical.
You've picked out Brentford and Everton here. It's surprising to see Brentford 18th over the last 6 for attacking data, 0.89 XG non-penalty per 90, yet they had the 4th best fixtures. We've seen them struggle. I mean, I've had Tony over this one. I've sold him now. Brentford go to Man City in the early kickoff. I worry for them there. I mean, obviously the Forest game, I watched it. I think we should have won that game. We were causing them a lot of problems in the first half, and they didn't really do too much against us. And you'll see on the Forest data, we've crept up the table in terms of defensive data when we look at that next. So, Tony, even though, you know, he's had a good first half of the season, I don't know how popular he's going to be going into the second half.
Yeah, I mean, Brentford last night lost to Gillingham in the cup. Gillingham are 22nd in League 2. Just to put that into context, and it wasn't a full rest for all of Brentford's players. There was some strong first team players playing in that match. Tony played, for example, and okay, they lost on penalties, and you can say it's a bit of a lottery, but I mean, sometimes you look at these cup games. Everton lost as well. 4-2 was it to Bournemouth? I know again they put out a second string squad, but you can a lot of the time tell when a team's struggling when by these cup performances.
Yeah.
And Brentford are definitely struggling because they shouldn't have won that. They shouldn't have got a draw in that game against you. Forest should have won that game.
No, we should have won it. Yeah,
I know, comfortably. And you know they've conceded a last minute equaliser, and the Forest fans were obviously happy, like you were. But they'll just be like, well, what is going on? And you look at this data, great fixtures, and really struggling in attack, struggling in defence as well. And you think City are going to. It's that question that you asked last week. Do City play with the kind of handbrake on a little bit? And the Fulham game wasn't really a fair test.
Can't really judge it, can you? No.
Cancelo got the red, but they were in full control even after he went off. And I can't see any way Brentford don't get hammered.
I think this will be a big win. And also, I look at Brentford and think they might be points ahead of Forest now. But what I saw in that game was not a lot between the teams. Okay, they didn't have Tony, but then we're going to sign players in January that could bridge the gap in quality between us and Brentford. And I think they've relied a lot on spirit and work rate and the system that Frank plays and the style of play that they believe in. But nothing impressed me in the game. And I think they could be, it's going to be a challenge for them in the second half of the season not to get dragged into it, I think. Of all the teams above Forest, I think I think we've got more chance of clawing Brentford back than Fulham, for example, because I do think Fulham will sign good players again in January, will probably make 1 or 2 acquisitions, and I think the basis of that team with Mitrovic is stronger than Brentford's now, which is quite surprising. So I don't think Brentford have really built much, really, on the success of last season, and they obviously don't have Eriksen, right? So, yeah, this is concerned. Everton, another team that I look at and think maybe Forest could claw them back. What are your thoughts on them? I mean, 13th, difficult fixtures, but right at the bottom, 0.81 XG non-penalty per 90. They go into the final week at Bournemouth. Some took a risk on Calvert-Lewin and probably cursing that now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the game yesterday. I mentioned the cup game again, just because they played the reserves, right? And what you want is a squad of players who want to play for the team, who can come in if you've got injuries, who can, stake a claim to be in the squad. There wasn't a single player in that Everton team that even looked remotely up for the task of playing in the Premier League. So that means Lampard's got to stick with the same players that he's got to win. Like, okay, Cody and Tarkowski are good players. They have solid. Without them, they'd be in big trouble. But I look around a lot of the other around the other side and think this isn't a decent Premier League side. Like, Calvert-Lewin, okay, is good, but he needs the service. Iwobi's having a good season, but other than that, I don't know. I think there's problems in that side, and the defence data is poor as well. I think they've conceded the most shots of all teams in the league this season. So I worry for them. And the only if you're conceding that many shots, okay, they're keeping clean sheets and they haven't been battered too many times. But again, the stats eventually get you. And if they're conceding this many shots, they're going to start conceding more goals. And if their attack data is this poor, they're going to struggle to win any games. So, and I don't think they're going to spend much in January because
no, that's it. They don't. They're
not investing.
No, I don't think they've got that option. And if they get one or two key injuries, then they could be in trouble. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, we won't be investing in Brentford and Everton on the final day. Well, I say final day of game week 16, which feels like a final day, doesn't it? Sorry, what's that?
They've got Bournemouth again, I think.
They've got Bournemouth away, same fixture again, yeah. It'll be very different 11s out for both teams, but I've predicted a Bournemouth win as well, again. Yeah. Let's look at defence then. Oh, that's the season. Let's look over the last 6. Incredible, isn't it, to see Chelsea at the bottom of this? So, over the last 6 matches, XG conceded non-penalty per 90, 1.62. And if we go back to over the season, they're 16th. For the season, 1.44 XG conceded non-penalty per 90. So it's been bad over the season. It's just got worse over the last 6 matches. And it's funny because when Potter arrived, I was like, well, the first thing that Potter's going to do is improve them defensively. He's not doing that in terms of the data, is he, by any means? Big chances, 2.50 big chances per match conceded. Only Liverpool and Fulham are worse than that over the last 6 matches. What's going on? Why isn't Potter correcting this?
I mean, the games they've had, Wolves, Villa, Brentford, Manchester United, Brighton and Arsenal. I mean, Wolves, Villa, Brentford, United, that's 4 teams that are struggling to score any goals. And okay, I think the Brighton result kind of pushes this over the last 6, but still, it's still really bad. I just think he hasn't got the tools to play how he wants. He actually had. I don't want to say the Brighton players are better than the Chelsea ones because they're not, because the Chelsea players are all world-class players. But you're talking about systems, right? That Brighton team was built over 4 or 5 different transfer windows, and all those players know their roles, know their positions, and the Chelsea players don't because he's playing, Pulisic at right wing back. I think, if Pascal Gross can do it, surely Pulisic can do it. Well, he can't. Or Loftus-Cheek or Sterling. It's really poor, and the midfield is just poor as well. I think there's going to be major changes at Chelsea. They just need to strengthen in every area. I think the centre back position is what they should be. They've spent about 250 million on centre backs in the summer or something, but the wing backs, Chilwell, okay, he needs to sort of his injury out. But on the right hand side, they need James back desperately. Midfield, they need to replace Jorginho, I think. Kovacic, Kante, these guys are injury prone now. And up front, they can't persist with Aubameyang and Havertz because I just don't think they're good enough.
He's got so much to do, hasn't he? He's so much to do. He basically needs to start again. He's got some foundations there in people like Reece James who he'll want to retain. Koulibaly, who's just come in, of course. Kepa is probably his keeper for the foreseeable future, a few seasons, I expect. But around that, there are 7 or 8 slots that he'll look at and go, I need replacements. I need to think again. And we won't. And what's intriguing from an FPL point of view is they play Newcastle away in this fixture. And a few weeks back, we might have looked at that and thought, I don't know if I want to go Wilson and Almiron with Chelsea on game week 16. Is that a game I want to back them in? You would back them now, wouldn't you? When looking at this data, you can only back a Newcastle win by several goals, can't it? Surely. Yeah.
I think the problem with Potter and his systems is that players can grow frustrated with it. If they're being played out of position and it's not working,
Yeah.
and they're losing games and they're losing 4-1 to Brighton, they're losing to Arsenal, not creating many chances, they can start questioning the tactics in the dressing room. And don't forget, Potter isn't an experienced manager with dealing with big names and big heads. This is his first big foray into a Champions League side. And I think the owners, let's hope, know what they're doing, investing in him. They've got to give him time. They've got to give him the chance to have a couple of transfer windows to sort the players out. But you never really know. And this is the guy that basically is being said to sack Tuchel because he wanted to sign Cristiano Ronaldo and Tuchel didn't. I do worry for Potter. I think if the results carry on the way they are, and these kind of stats are coming through, and there's a couple of the big names in the dressing room questioning him, he could be in trouble.
He's got to get top four. I don't think that's negotiable. He's got to get Champions League, and that the way Newcastle are playing, and you'd expect Liverpool to come good second half of the season. You factor those two in, and top four's not guaranteed at all. They've got work to do because City and Arsenal were given for the top two. I would have said, right?
Yeah, I can't see him getting top four. Not with Newcastle, Liverpool, and United. I know United just lost to Villa, but you've got United, you've got Spurs. I think all of those teams could end up finishing higher than Chelsea.
Yeah, so it's very difficult. Highlighted City with the 5th best fixtures. 4th in its defensive data, 0.74. It's very close at the top. United atop 0.70 XG conceded non-penalty per 90. Brighton second, 0.71. Arsenal third, 0.73. Then comes City, 0.74. Strange to not see City at the top. Is that why you've picked them out there? Yeah,
that's why I highlighted them because they're often top of these team data defence charts, by quite a substantial margin. And they've actually had the best fixtures of all the top 7 teams, and they're only 4th. I mean, okay, there's barely any in it at all, and also these are good defensive stats for these teams, right down to Newcastle in 5th. But yeah, I thought City would feature higher on this. And I do wonder if all the defensive rotation that's going on does make them a little bit more get at a ball.
I think so. I feel that this season. I do feel like they, they've always been vulnerable to counter-attacking teams, but I think that Ederson's having to do a bit more this season. That's the feeling I have from watching games. I think the stats don't bear it out necessarily, but the eye test makes it feel like they're giving up a bit more space to opponents and conceding better quality chances is my feel just watching the games. And the data somewhat backs that up. But, there's still a defence we're going to... No one's selling Cancelo a calls. United, over the other side of Manchester, top of this, over the last 6 matches, XG conceded is the lowest of any team, and XG non-penalty is the lowest of any team. 12th best fixtures, so not great fixtures. I mean, Ten Hag's done a great job, and Martinez has found his feet, hasn't he? I mean, he's not very far from his feet. He's only about 3 or 4 foot, but he has, hasn't he? He's found his feet in the Premier League, and coming into his own a bit. And United with Dalot, probably the target, are going to be a defence that we consider for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, they have been a lot better. I guess the worry is when they have a result like they do against Villa. I mean, losing 3-1 to Villa, who had just themselves been smashed by Newcastle, then had a good result before. They're both kind of patchy teams, right? And I do think United have got these results in them just to kind of lose a game which they
of course.
Which they probably should win. But I mean, you look at the results before that. I mean, they got the 0-0 with Newcastle. They beat Spurs 2-0. They got a draw with Chelsea 1-0. West Ham 1-0. Like, they've kept 3 clean sheets in the last 4 games before that Villa match. So the signs are good. I guess Dallow's the one that you kind of go for. But again, I think Dallow's a decent enough option, especially if you're taking money out of defence.
It'll be in our thinking, won't it? And obviously we'll do shows before we come back, and we'll look at targets for Gameweek 17. That's not the topic of tonight, but it's just surprising to see United top of the data. You've highlighted Forest as well.
Especially with Varane out as well. That's the other thing. Yeah,
exactly. You've highlighted Forest as well, 12th, 1.25. We've seen the improvement. We've had the 18th best fixture, so bad fixtures, and Forest have made a fist of it. We've changed the system of play. I think that's testament to Cooper's ability to adapt. And we've had to adapt. We haven't liked it because we want to be more enterprising, but we've had to become much more pragmatic. We did open up a bit more against Brentford. We caused them a lot more problems, showed a bit more ambition. But it's encouraging for me to see this. We just need to improve in attack, I think.
That's why I wanted to highlight it for you, Mark.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
Encouraging signs.
Okay, let's look at keepers data. Last 6 game weeks. I think it's fair to say no one's making a goalkeeper transfer into game week 16. Would that be fair to say? I mean, I've got Raya at City, and I'm not taking him out because there are more priorities. There are more positions in our teams, even defence, where I think we can make a difference for this game week before the break. Would you agree?
It's so funny you say that because I'm debating a goalkeeper transfer.
What? Are you seriously?
Yeah, I am. Because I don't trust Henderson and I don't really like Ward. And I look at my team, and if I don't move for Salah, I actually quite like my team this week. So I could do Henderson up to Ramsdale.
You've got to play Henderson at home to Palace. Yeah,
especially without Zaha as well. But I thought I had to play him at home to Brentford, and you conceded 2 goals.
He did, but he was unfortunate because it wasn't a penalty, was it? I mean, we make defensive errors, so we're always going to concede some goals. But I do think that I think that Leicester go to West Ham and Forest are home to Palace. They're the 2 keepers you've got. That doesn't scream of you have to get rid of one. Have you really got nothing else to do than change a goalkeeper?
You can see my team at the end of the stream, and tell me if you think there's a really obvious move that I'm missing. Because the obvious move to me is De Bruyne to Salah, but that could go wrong.
Yeah.
So there's part of me that wants to just keep him. We'll talk about it at the end. Have a look, see what you think.
So in this data, I mean, Henderson shows up in 9th, 4.50, sorted by points per 90, 4.50. And there's no great shakes really for Henderson. He's not. I thought he was going to be the 4-5 option to hang your hat on, but Danny Ward has been outstanding, absolutely outstanding. You can't sell him, can you? You've got to take him into the second half of the season. Whoever you get as your first choice keeper, you're going to keep Ward, right? And I think most of us will gravitate towards Ward as our second keeper. Some may even go Ward and Everson. We might go back to Ward and Everson, right?
You don't deserve the Ward Iverson combination if you went off it. I mean, some people I heard kept Everson over Ward and to save the 0.1 million.
I did. I can't believe I did that because I looked at it and thought, well, I'm not going to want to play my Leicester keeper anyway, so. For the 0-1, why would I go Ward? There was no thinking in my head that made me think, well, what if Ward keeps 6 clean sheets out of 7? Or, no way did I think that.
I think it's one of like the FPL turnarounds ever. I really do. For people to have gone with the 2-4 million keepers and just to be punished every week, and then everyone wildcards him out, and then all of a sudden he starts. I mean, Slippers was stuck with Ward Everson, and he was kind of relentlessly mocked for it. Yeah. He's laughing now.
Yeah.
Sippers has been killing it with his goalkeeper, with his 2 goalkeepers.
I can't believe it.
It's amazing. It really is. I love stories like that because it's just ridiculous. I don't know where that's come from because he was so poor. He looks so poor in that side, and he looks a lot better, and Leicester look a lot better. So credit to Rodgers, to be fair, because I didn't see that coming. I thought he'd be sacked.
But looking at this data, you're not going to go Alisson at 5-4 after the break. You're going to go Kepa. And I mean, Kepa and Ward are probably going to be the 2 most popular choices, I would have thought. Because, I mean, you look at Kepa and it's, saves per 90, 4.4, which is that's the kind of save average of a keeper that we'd expect in a mid-table or even a relegation threatened team. So he's in a team where you'd expect the defensive data to, clean sheets to drop in eventually, and he's getting save points. But I guess the question is, maybe they never will drop in. Maybe Kepa is only worth 4-5 because the Chelsea defence will never get sorted out.
That is it, isn't it? That's what's so ridiculous is when you look at that Chelsea data for them to be bottom, over the last 6 and the season data as well. But you've got to remember, if you're paying 4-5 for a goalkeeper, you're often paying 4-5 for like a Henderson or like a relegation threatened team. And you've got to think with Chelsea's fixtures after the break, it will kind of turn around. So, if it was the start of the season and you were offered a Chelsea goalkeeper for 4-5, he'd be 90% owned probably.
You'd woof it down, wouldn't you? Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I think with Ward as the backup, there's no worry about Ward's place. Now, there might have been a few weeks ago with Everson hanging around, but if you've got Kepa and Ward, I think it's the way to play it.
I mean, like I say, we'll do a show about Game Week 17. We'll probably do a couple of shows when we come back from the World Cup around Christmas time. I was just thinking, though, it's Boxing Day is Game Week 17, right? So for us to do a show before Boxing Day, we're going to have to do it Christmas Eve. Should we do
Christmas Eve? Yep, let's lock it in.
I'll go and explain to the kids that, no Christmas this year, or your presents aren't wrapped. Couldn't be asked because I had BlackBox to do.
Yeah, ain't got to do BlackBox.
That ain't going to work, is it? And go, what am I talking about? I don't wrap the presents. The elves do that, don't they? Of course.
I hope Billy's not listening. I've
just broken that dream for him. No, it's no good. Okay.
Can I say one thing quickly on Kepa? I do think one thing I wouldn't want if my team was 20th of the defensive data would be reliance on Kepa in goal. And I'm sorry if there's big time Kepa
I think he's done all right. I think he's done well.
Done all right. He has done all right. But would you trust him for the rest of the season as your number one goalkeeper?
I know that Mendy's a better shot stopper and probably better on crosses and a bigger presence, but when Mendy's got the ball at his feet, the panic, you can't do it, can you?
What makes me laugh is the tactics don't change and they still try and play it out the back, even with Mendy. And he looks like he's like, I don't know,
competition
like
winner when he's got the ball at his feet. Yeah, it's terrible.
He just kicked one out, didn't he, for a throw in?
The panic. He panics immediately. He's like, it makes me anxious, and I'm only watching. I'm like, I was playing in the back four. No. Okay, let's look at defenders. Last 6 game weeks, and this is quite a familiar looking table. If you look at the defenders over the season, these names are all at the top: Perisic, Trippier, Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Sessegnon. Castagna is probably the name that we wouldn't have expected to see in there. Again, like Ward, the way he's turned it around has been incredible. I think that anyone at the start of the season probably would have picked Castagna out or maybe James Justin, but you probably would have gone Castagna as your Leicester defender of choice, but you would have given up on him quite quickly the way Leicester started. But if you went in like you did and timed your transfer well, he's been absolutely outstanding. But his data's not that great. You look at he's not in the top 10 for shots per 90 or chances created per 90 or even open play crosses per 90. And yet, his points return has been strong, and his XGI non-penalty per 90 is 0.28, which puts him 6th behind Sessegnon, Robertson, Trent, Trippier and Perisic. But strangely, when we're discussing defenders that we can maybe invest in for this 1 week dead end punt, whatever you want to call it, there are some options, aren't there?
Yeah, they're right. I mean, Castagna's been, I've made a lot of bad moves this season, but Castagna has been right up there. And when I did it, I was like, I'm doubling up with Leicester defence. That seems a really, really bad idea. And I just got fortunate that things kind of turned around so much. But, he is often playing as a kind of wing back or advanced. But I know the stats aren't great, but one of those players that you kind of feel like something could happen. He does well on the bonus. He's got the assist potential. He's really cheap. I really like. I think I got him at 4.44. Now he's up to 4.7. So he's even kind of increasing in price.
Sickening, absolutely.
It is sick. I sicken by myself, but I feel like I deserve it. That's the one good decision I've made. Yeah, I mean, you've got Creswell. I really like Creswell. For this week, I think this Leicester West Ham game is quite a difficult one to call as well. We're talking which one we were going to feature in one of our later sections about Castagna, because we think with the set pieces and with the way he's been playing, we just kind of tipped Creswell. So I think he's a really good option. Perisic is an interesting one as well at the top of this list.
Well,
I mean, he was playing up front against Liverpool.
It's incredibly interesting because he's a good bet anyway, playing at wing back, but he played up front. If anything, he played ahead of Kane, didn't he? And he had chances.
Way ahead
he had
Kane,
chances, and he was still on the set pieces, and he goes up against Leeds in this game week. So, I mean, let's look at this table now, because we picked out 4 defenders that we consider to be dead-end defenders. And the definition here is defenders that, for 1 week, could deliver explosive returns, maybe a double figure in this game week. So Perisic has Leeds at home. Robertson is at home to Southampton, so is Trent, and then Creswell's at home to Leicester. What these defenders have in common is attacking potential, in that Perisic and Creswell take set pieces, as does Trent and Robertson. Perisic could be playing up front, which looks fairly likely, I would say, and certainly either a 2 or a front 3. And Creswell could be on pens, but I think we saw him pick up the ball, didn't we, and then give it to. Who did he give it to? He gave
Rama.
Ben Rama. So it depends if Ben Rama's on the pitch at the time a penalty is awarded. But Creswell's on direct free kicks like Trent is. So there's lots of routes to points here. They've got fixtures that could return clean sheets, but they've all got attacking potential. Looking at this data, it's Perisic who stands out even before you consider that he's going to be further up the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, a few people pointing out in the chat already that Kulusevski's back as well, which was one of the attacking options they didn't have. Richarlison's on the bench tonight against Forest.
Right, okay.
As well. And, he's going into the Brazil team wanting to kind of start for them. So you've got to think he's going to get some minutes in that. But that's what you're doing this week, right? You're kind of taking a bit of a punt and risking it on someone. I think if you've got no other moves to make, taking a bit of a punt on Perisic against Leeds isn't the worst option. I think he probably starts.
I think he starts. I mean, yeah. I think he had a good game. He missed his the chances that came away. He missed, but it's his delivery. It's the service he provides from set plays is so good that I think that gets him the starting role ahead of Sessegnon. So I think he's a risk worth taking, given that this data isn't based purely on that one match. Obviously, it's based on the season, and over the season, you can see he's by far the stronger option, even ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold in terms of, the big chances he's created, the touches in the box per 90, touches in the box per 90, 5.21, compared to the next best, which is Robertson, who interestingly beats Trent, 3.13, compared to Trent, 1.89. But Perisic is the best option of these four for shots in the box, for big chances, for chance created, for big chance created, which is surprising. For Perisic to be beating Trent on chances created per 90 and big chances created per 90, I wouldn't have said that at the start of the season.
Mm. Would you buy Perisic? I mean, he's starting tonight again.
Is he? Right.
I think he still starts, but you've got to think the minutes are getting managed. I like it. If you're looking for an explosive punt, I like him, but I think you have got to be prepared for a benching.
Yeah, I think the fact that he's starting tonight gives me more doubts. It depends if he goes on. If he gets 90, I think he's too big a risk. And then I'm edging towards Robertson. I mean, let's look at the data over the last 6 game weeks, and it's actually pretty close between Trent and Robertson in terms of which is the stronger of the two Liverpool fullbacks. And obviously there's a price difference of 0.5. But actually, Robertson has outscored Trent in the last 6 game weeks, and touches in the box 2.68 to Trent's 1.89, and even chances created per 90, the gap isn't massive. 2.19 for Robertson, 2.97 for Trent. So he's got some advantage, but shots per 90, 0.49 to 0.54. There's not a lot in it, is there? So if you can't stretch to Trent, go into Robertson for this Leeds game, and Robertson was really impressive against Spurs, I thought. Isn't a bad punt either, is it?
No, I like it. It's someone that no one's going to have. I mean, what is Robertson's ownership? It's got to be. I'd be amazed if it was 10%. What do you say? I'll look it up. What do you reckon?
It's not even that, is it?
4% ownership for Robertson. So. Yeah, ridiculously good option. Down to 6-7 now. If you've got the money in the bank to take a bit of a punt on him, then there's probably few better punts, I'd say, this week than Robertson or Trent. But I would favour Robertson because
it's Southampton they play, and Southampton at the weekend looked like they had troubles at fullback. They got injuries there.
They don't have a right back.
No. Yeah, which
this
again,
is one of their big problems. They don't have a right back, so you've got to think Robertson's going to have some joy.
Yeah. So, given tonight's information, which we didn't have when we prepared the show and we went into the show, that Perisic is starting, and the fact that Richarlison's on the bench, suddenly I think the pendulum has swung towards Robertson or Trent as a player you go to if you want to take a punt and you want it's defenders you need to move in. Obviously, it depends what you got in midfield. We'll look at them in a minute. Cresswell, not bad option though, because I think in recent matches, he has been very unfortunate not to get attacking returns. And he's still, over the last 6 game weeks, got 18 points, which is equal best here. He has started 6 games compared to 4 and 3 for the other players on show here. But it's it's the chances created per 90, which are impressive. 2.50, which is better than Robertson, almost as good as Trent, and not quite as good as Perisic. But from what I've seen, he's the main source of creativity from that side for West Ham. And like I said, he could even pick up the ball for a penalty if Benrahma's not on the pitch. So he's not a bad shout at 4.8 if you haven't got the money to stretch to Robertson. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the worry is with West Ham is they're just not doing that well. They're not playing amazingly well. And I think the pressure on Moyes is starting to creep up a bit because they haven't really got any injuries either. and he's kind of got a full strength team to pick from, and they don't seem. There's just something not quite right with them. They're not scoring loads of goals. Their defensive data's been good, but
It's got to be the fatigue.
Match.
It's the fatigue from the Europa League. Even if you rotate players, it's the mental fatigue, and obviously you've got less time to prepare your teams for the weekend. So it's not just your playing staff that are stretched; it's your coaching staff as well, and your medical staff. Right, everything is stretched by being in the Europa League, and it's going to impact you. It's going to impact you on the pitch on a Saturday or Sunday rather, as it is for West Ham. And Leicester, of course, when you think that Liverpool play Southampton and Spurs play Leeds and West Ham play Leicester, you'd back Leicester to score, wouldn't you? Whereas Leeds and Southampton may end up getting blanks in their respective games and give these players clean sheets. But I think Leicester have got a goal in them. That's the trouble as well.
Yeah, I think Leicester have just been really impressive. I watched them play, and they're playing with such swag at the moment. And if Maddison doesn't get on that plane to Qatar, It'll
break your heart, won't it?
It will break my heart, because the stats show that he's our best midfielder. In terms of goal contributions, no midfielder comes close to him. So when we struggle in attack, our England team, not taking our most creative midfielder would just be a complete joke.
Well, here is the midfield data, and Maddison turns up on this over the last 6 game weeks. He is in the top 10 for chances created per 90, 2.80. He's only beaten by the likes of Foden, Odegaard and De Bruyne. So, that shows you and Son creeps ahead of him slightly, 2.87. So he is a big creative force of midfielders, certainly of English midfielders. I mean, none of those players are English that I've listed that are beating him. So you're absolutely right. In terms of creativity, he's, apart from Foden, he's right up there, isn't he? But, I think he's a player, when we talk about targets coming out of Christmas, he's going to be another player that people are going to look to, I think, because Leicester will be tipped to have a strong second half of the season the way they're finishing now. And Maddison is at the fulcrum of that. So will you go back to him in Gameweek 17?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's my love for James Maddison. I think he's gone up. He'd already, every year. I think when he first signed, we kind of wondered what kind of FPL asset he would end up being, because he'd go on quite long spells of playing deep and not getting too many points. But I'd say the last 3 years, he's gone up and up and up. And last year, he finished particularly really, really strongly. And this year, he's now at the next level. It's a very talented team Leicester have got. With Tielemans there and Daka and Vardy, and right across the midfield, they've got strong players. He's the best player in that side. Now, it's the heartbeat of the side. He wasn't phased when they were struggling. He was always the one trying to grab the ball and drive them forwards. I just think he's fantastic. I just think he's a fantastic player, and he's a player that any team could build a team around. It'd be interesting if Leicester can keep hold of him, because Newcastle were thinking about him in the summer, weren't they? I wonder if they'll go back to him.
Yeah, I think they will for January. I don't know if they will going into next season. I mean, the fact that he struggled to get in this England team, he might look at that and think, I'm going to have to move clubs to get that recognition. Maybe that's it. I don't know what it could be. Yeah.
You have to change your manager, I think. Southgate he's a funny guy. He's definitely got his favourites.
Well, don't get me started on Trent, although he has been dreadful, but I still think you find a place for him. There's some interesting options here, and it does strike me that Somerville, for example, a 4-4 midfield option for Leeds. If he'd have been in pre-season and done what he's done over the last few games, we'd have all started with him in our teams, I think, because he's looked a prospect. We knew he was, but now he's getting starts. He's had 3 starts. He's scored 3 goals and an assist in that over the last 6 game weeks. His data's, he's not in the top 10 for anything here other than points per 90, but at 4-4, in any other scenario, he might get into our teams. I don't know if he does going into Game Week 17, given that Pereira is still there as an option, but you'd have to consider Somerville. But I guess the issue is he going to continue to get starts? That's the thing, isn't it?
That's it. With Pereira, you're getting some set pieces, you're getting penalties if Mitrovic isn't playing. We know that now. You're getting like a decent attacking side in Fulham. You can see that from the stats. I mean, there's some arguments that Pereira could be a 4th mid if you go for the 3 kind of option. If you're having to start a Bailey or 4 at the back with someone, maybe you just start Pereira. I can't remember what Fulham's fixtures are like, but that opens a door for Somerville potentially. But I think in a straight shootout between Somerville and Pereira, I'm sticking with Pereira.
And I tell you what, you look at this and you think, well, if Somerville's in our head, what about Bailey at the top of this? Because last 6 game weeks, 0.74 XGR non-penalty per 90, he's the top option. And just like he was in our heads going into game week 1, he's back in there going into game week 17. He's got to be. He's like, I look at him and think, surely if you're 4 million in the world, you've got to do something different with your team. And what I could do different with my team is I could go for options like that and then double up on Kane and Haaland, for example, and have that option and go freemium. You know, the players are there to go freemium in the likes of Bailey and Somerville and Pereira. These are players that you could get away with putting in your 11 every week, I think.
Yeah, I mean, only Martinez has got more points than Bailey this season in the Villa squad. And, you know, if you'd said that Bailey had 48 points, you know, at the start of the season, you'd probably be saying, well, do you know what? That's not bad for him. I mean, it's been awful for a lot of people who started the season with him. But yeah, the data is good. And we know Emery likes to play with his wingers. And they haven't really got too many wingers in that side. Like they're having to play Watkins on the right, aren't they? And Bailey on the left.
I think he's got to start every game. It's whether he stays fit. It's whether he stays fit. And what does Emery turn Villa into? Signs are good, but it's only been 1 game. So we might need more data before we commit to it. But I think we'll all, if we don't have the likes of Bailey in our team, we'll all have an eye on it and think, oh, I could just switch to Bailey and go freemium. That's going to be in our heads, right?
I just don't understand how they can lose 3-0 to Fulham, beat Brentford 4-0, lose 4-0 to Newcastle, and then beat United 3-1. It's, yeah, I mean, you like you say, that you've got to think the tools are there, because if they can get those kind of results, you know, against United and against Brentford, there must be some talent. Like, in that
there
side.
is. They're a good side.
We all know there is.
Yeah.
So if he can just sort out the kind of blips that, you know, of losing to Newcastle and Fulham like they did, then they should be a good side. Should give us some options in the second half of the season.
So Villa go to Brighton. So I don't think you're looking at Bailey at game week 16. It's beyond that. One player you could look in this game, Matoma. Here you go. There you go. Talk about him. You didn't ask me to set this up, but I can't ignore it. He's 10th in this data, 0.47 XGR non-penalty per 90. Chances created per 90. It's 3.13. Only De Bruyne beats that De Bruyne and Pereira beats that over the last 6 game weeks. He's only started the 2 games, but he's returned a goal and an assist. Over to you, Mr. Az. Tell us why Matoma should be the budget option of choice going into game week 17, and why he should be maybe in our choice for game week 16 even.
Yeah, I mean, I did mention him last week as someone a bit different. I bought Trossard myself. I still think Trossard is the kind of the one you go for. But it was interesting that we were losing to Wolves. Were we losing or were we drawing? I think we were drawing maybe. And he made a couple of subs. And Trossard was one of the players that went off. Matoma stayed on the pitch. And it's now, 89 minutes he played in that game, 72 minutes he played against Chelsea. I think De Zerbi really, really likes him. And I think he would have started sooner. He picked up a bit of an injury. I think he would have started. So he's a De Zerbi type player. This kind of like left winger who likes to drift inside and help link up play with the midfield and the attack. He's a very, very clever player. You saw it with the assist that he got a few weeks ago for Trossard. He just kind of backheeled it. So I think he's going to be a really important player for us going forward. I really like him. It's just if it's him or Trossard.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I still think you go for Trossard, but we're talking 2.1 million difference between them now. So if you're brave and you're looking for someone under 6 million, I think Mitoma is probably the one that you get this week.
But he's another player that we're going to go into the second half of the season with our eye on going, it only takes one of Bailey or Matoma or Somerville to emerge as really fantastic bargains, and all 3 of those players could. All 3 of those players have shown in the last few game weeks that they could be absolute bargains in the second half of the season. And we can't ignore that. I'm not saying we commit to one or even any of them for game week 17, but we are going to have it in our heads and we are going to go on, need to watch that, because we know what that can do. That changes everything. That enables you to go freemium. It enables you to double up on the City defence or the Liverpool defence more likely and go Robertson and Trent. That could break the template up. There's nothing like a bargain player to break the template up, and those 3 could all fit that bill. So
yeah, we didn't have this really like a little while ago. Like because I do the scout picks for Scout every week. With Neil and Sam and Tom, and one of the criteria is pick a midfielder under 6 million. And I wrote a letter of complaint to Neil. I was like, look, Neil, this is ridiculous. We're just picking Almiron every week.
Yeah,
it's stupid.
Well, we haven't even mentioned Almiron, and everyone's going to have him. Yeah. We could have midfielders. We could have 3 midfielders all under 5 or 6 million easily, couldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And we needed it earlier in the season because so many of the premiums weren't firing for us. We wanted to kind of get, Kane and Haaland and 8 million midfielders and stuff, and we needed that kind of 5 million slot. So, yeah, I think we're going to go into Gameweek 17 after the World Cup, and I think people's squads will be quite different in terms of how they do. I mean, I've been rocking the 3 million for the last few weeks in a really budget defence, which neither of us would have thought was possible 7 or 8 weeks ago because Cancelo and Trent and all that. So I'm looking forward to the second half of the season. Actually, I think it's going to be really interesting.
I am. I look at it and think, you know what? There's actually a few things I could take a risk with because at 4 million, I've got to do something different. There's no point in me. Yes, I could pick a template team going into 17 and try and grind my way down to a rank that isn't embarrassing. Right? I could. Or I could do a couple of things like go with someone like Bailey, go with someone like Somerville, and go freemium and have someone there I can move the captaincy to when I don't fancy Haaland. I could have Salah, Kane and Haaland then and do something, or go Trent and Robertson. It gives me options. So at least I've got options now, whereas a few weeks back I was thinking I'm just going to have to be template all season and hope that I can get the captaincy right now and again when it's not on Haaland. And that was depressing. Now I actually feel, you know what, it could be quite exciting second half of the season. And that's without new signings as well who could come in.
Yeah, Somerville captain. That's what I'm hearing.
I want to pull out a Bronski beat sample, but I'm not going to do it now. Let's look at midfielder options for Game Week 16, though. This is why we're here. So this is season data. We picked out Zaha, Kulusevski, Maddison and Trossard as the players that you could consider. And looking at transfers in so far into 16, these are some of the most popular players. Kulusevski's not, because he really is a maverick pick, but you've got to consider him given that he came on and had an instant impact, right?
Oh, he was absolutely brilliant, wasn't he? He completely changed the game for Spurs. You wonder when a player's been out for a while how they're going to come back into the side. Does the injury mean they're going to be slow? They're going to take a bit of time to adapt? He absolutely didn't. He's just brilliant. He's just brilliant on that right hand side. They've missed him more than I think a lot of people thought they would. I mean, we kind of knew that they would miss him, obviously, because he's that kind of only right-sided player. But I really liked him, and I think again, if I'm looking at midfielders, I'm looking at this list. If I had the money and I had someone that I wanted to move out, I'd go for Kulusevski.
Would you? Definitely. For that Leeds game, you just take that one. That's a definition of a pump for this game week, isn't it?
I really like it. Yeah, he's not playing tonight in the cup. He's definitely going to start this game against Leeds. 8 million, love it. I think it's a great shout.
Yeah.
Great shout.
Yeah, I'm with you there. If someone had said to you, Lo, after 16 or after 15 game weeks, Trossard would have 13 starts, 7 goals, 3 assists. Someone who you once said had absolutely no end product.
That's why I haven't got the soundbite.
I just couldn't set it up, didn't have time, but I regret that now. But the data all points to him. Of these 4, even your man Maddison there, it all points to Trossard being the player you go with. Yes, they're at home to Villa, but, they're erratic, as you pointed out. I think there's something in that game for Trossard. And make a case for not going with him here.
Well, the key one for me is touches in the box. 89 touches in the box. Yeah, that is so high. I mean, Zaha is a player who, I know he's been playing a bit on the wide, but he's a player who loves to drift into the box, and he's got 72. But Trossard is ahead of him, and we've seen Trossard been playing at, we're worried about him playing at left wing back or on the left and stuff. He just is playing as like the furthest forward player for us a lot of the time now.
Shots in the box as well, 31.
Yeah.
To Zaha's 23.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It's exciting. He's again, and that's another player that is an option in midfield. And I don't see any reason why he can't continue this form into the second half of the season. I haven't watched Trossard and thought he can't maintain this.
No, I mean, he's on for 140, 150 points this season. If you got him at 6.5, you'd be over the moon with that. Even at 7 million, if he has another half a season like he's had now for 7 million, he'll be one of the best sort of value picks in the game. So I just look at the way we play, and we just like you talk about liquid football. I mean, it's just unbelievably good play. Like some of our attacks and our shots, the way the midfield is linking with the forwards now. I don't know. I'm really optimistic about Brighton going forward under De Zerbi. I think we fell behind against Wolves. We came back. We scored a couple of goals, which we've been struggling to do under him. And Trossard's the main man. The only worry is January, and his contract is contract's actually up at the end of the year.
And Potter knows that.
Yeah, we've got an option for another year to extend it, which we obviously will. But if Newcastle, Chelsea,
it's going to be teams, there's a 40-50 million offer coming in there, which seems crazy. Seems crazy, but yeah, it's coming
in January. There's a 40-50 million offer in January for sure.
One of these four, who would you go with?
I'd go for Kulu.
Okay.
This week at home to Leeds, I think it's going to be an open game. I think from what I saw about Kulu in that match, I was really, really impressed. And Leeds, I'm just not sure about them. They beat Liverpool. They conceded a load of goals the game after. You just never really know what you're going to get. And I think given his ownership is going to be like 0.5% or whatever it is. You talk about dead ending your team. I think he's a really exciting pick that no one will have. So I'd go Kulu.
I've switched the last 6 game weeks, and it still looks good for Trossard. If you just sampled the last 6 game weeks, he's still ahead in most of these indicators here. Of these 4, which one would I go with? I reckon Morgan Gibbs-White.
You got a screen for him?
No. Let's look at forwards, shall we? So this is forwards over the season. Let's look at last 6 data. I don't think it's going to differ too much. Having said that, Haaland's only 4th in the last 6 data, and Awani is 3rd there. Yeah. There you go. Not starting for Forest at the moment. Darwin Núñez, right? We picked him out as one of 4 forwards to consider going into game week 16 if you don't have him. He's got to be in people's thoughts, hasn't he? Going into a game against Southampton. Just as we said, Robertson or Trent would be a defensive pick to go for. Darwin, who is a player that I've looked at and thought, surely at some point I'm going to get him in my team. He's a player I want to because he's so direct, he's so exciting, he's very raw, it's very frustrating. Is this the game week to go? If you need to get a forward in, if you want to make a transfer, maybe it's Mitrovic going out, or maybe you've got the money to go today. Is Darwin the one? Is that the way you go?
Do you know what? I think I was quite unkind at the start of the episode when I said that there wasn't many players that we could consider because I think we've identified Robertson and potentially Trent. I think more so Robertson, Kulusevski, Trossard, Gibbs-White, as you mentioned. And I think in the forwards, I think we have Núñez because he's another one of those players who has a ridiculous amount of chances in every match. He often shoots on sight. His decision making is questionable. He did give the ball to Salah, for one of the goals.
He did, and a goal scored. Yeah, there you go.
Which was good, but that seems like a bit of a rarity for him. He does seem like the kind of player who wants to be the one shooting all the time. That's what you want. You against Southampton, you want someone who's going to have chances, and he doesn't seem like a clinical finisher to me. But this is the kind of game in which it's 1 week, he could hit 4 and then not score again for 6 weeks, and all you want is to be on him when he hits those 4 goals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think he's almost like the poster boy for this kind of like 1 week punt, in that you want someone explosive. You want someone who could have a hat-trick in them. And we talked about Jesus, who has done everything but produce a hat-trick. Over the last 6 game weeks, 5 starts, only 3 assists. Okay, Núñez, 4 starts, 2 goals, 1 assist. It's not electric. But if you're backing Liverpool to beat Southampton by maybe 2-3 goals, you've got to think Darwin gets something out of that game. And what does he get? Well, it could be anything from 1 to 3 goals, couldn't it? He's got it in him, there's no doubt. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that player who might just have that big 15, maybe even 20-point return. And Darwin is one of those players. He fits the bill, doesn't he?
Yeah, I really like him, and why not? If you've got the money and you can upgrade a struggling striker you might have, then do it. I guess the issue is that even selling Mitrovic comes with risk, given that we've just seen United concede 3 away at Villa, and we think Mitrovic is going to be back in the side. So the forward spots are quite hard to play with because if you've got Kane, you're going to want to get rid of him. Haaland, obviously, you're not going to want to. Jesus, we've talked about as being someone explosive. Even Solanke at home to Everton, they're all tougher sales for Núñez, I think. But Núñez could be one of the top scorers this week. So
I think if you hailed Tony, why would you have done that? But maybe you had bigger fires to put out. Obviously, Tony goes to City. He's got to be the sell. So there might be some Tony owners left. And that's where, if you can afford to move up, then Núñez has got to be in your thinking. We picked out 3 other forwards. So we've got Núñez in here. We've got Kane in here. We've got Solanke and we've got Jesus. I looked at the transfers in for forwards, and these are amongst the most popular picks. I think they're 4 of the top 6. Obviously, Haaland's in there, but we're not going to focus on him. A lot of people getting Haaland in, and looks like they sold him last week. But these 4 probably fit the bill in terms of strikers most likely to return in Game Week 16, I would say, other than Haaland. Of these 4, obviously Kane's the one that stands out if you don't have him already, if you can afford him. But I think Núñez at that price point, 8-9, is good, and Solanke's the budget option to go for, given that Bournemouth play Everton and they've just put 4 past them in the cup, right? So, of these 4, where would you go? Money, no object.
If I was buying a striker this week, I'd buy Núñez.
So even over Kane, just for the fun of it.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, Kane was frustrating again in that game against Liverpool. I mean, I've said it like week on week. I know Kane is doing really well. He's probably been like the best performing player in my team. 11 goals this season, only 2 blanks in like the last 13 games or something. Can't really ask for a lot more, but explosiveness hasn't really been there. I mean, he got 10 points against Leicester, 10 points against Forest, but other than that, not had any double-digit returns. He's a steady Eddie. Do you want a steady Eddie?
And no Son, of course. No Son there.
No, exactly. And they're struggling tonight against you, your boys. So, yeah, 0-0 at half-time, I believe. So, yeah, I don't think I would be buying him. I'm certainly not going to sell him. But I think the explosive of Núñez means I would prefer him if I was buying a striker. Yeah,
and over the season, XGR non-penalty per 90, 0.89 for Núñez. Probably what we might have expected of him, but we would have expected more than 0.57 off of Kane. Really? Okay.
1-0. Brazilian left back, Lodi.
Why are you surprised? It's like, it's all going to happen in the second half of the season.
Only because I just said they were drawing. No discredit to
But yeah, Kane has been a little bit disappointing. He's been consistent. And normally, in any other season, that consistency would have seen him in our teams because we want him as a captain, but not with Haaland about. So you need more from Kane for him to be in our teams, don't we? We need him to be getting double-figure returns. And like you said, it hasn't come for him. And I think you're absolutely right. If you money no object, if you're taking a punt 16, Darwin's the player to go to, I think, in the forwards.
Yeah, I mean, I can't complain at Kane. I mean, when you are captaining Haaland every week and you've got a player getting between 6 and 9 points every week, it's pretty decent no matter what price they are. In fact, if he was getting double-digit hauls, you'd be tempted to captain him, then he'd probably be losing out on the Haaland points anyway. So I don't know. It's all kind of, I don't know. Kane's fine. I'm not gonna bash him.
No, you don't sell him, but I think if you're gonna take a punt, Kane is a little bit safe, and I think you'll probably get a return. Is he going to get a hat trick against Leeds? He could do, but it hasn't happened for him so far, and he hasn't got Son there either. So he's got to do it without the player that he's linked with best over the last 2-3 seasons. So you wouldn't back it. But and would Leeds capitulate? I guess they can. Leeds are conceding chances. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. But the Conte attack has worried me this season. They don't look like a team that's going to smash someone 3 or 4-0 at the moment, do they? That's the thing.
No, particularly with the injuries they've had. I mean, Kane's a 4-12 against Leeds, point wise. Núñez is a 2-22.
Exactly, and that's what you want. That's what you want if you're taking a punt in Game Week 16. So that's where we are. Okay, let's look at predictions. What are the standings like? Let's have a look. You did better than me last week. What an incredible week for you. 7 correct outcomes from 10. I hit my 50% mark, but you come in with a 70%er. 1 correct score to my 0, so that narrows the gap. It's 48.5% correct outcomes for you, 50.4 for me. I'm keeping my head just above the 50%, but very, very close. Let's look at what we predict for Game Week 16, shall we? Right, we're starting with City Brentford, and we both agree straight away. I haven't seen your predictions still now, so this is quite interesting. 3-0 City we're going for. I can't see any others. I mean, 3, it could be more. And what I saw at Brentford at Forest, they allowed us chances, and if they allowed us chances, they're gonna give up chances to City. So 3-0 could be kind, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to kind of try and shut up shop, aren't they? And hope for the best. I guess they weren't trying to do that against Forest, which is why they conceded chances. But you see when City had Cancelo sent off, I think their possession went up to like 70% or 75% or something for the remainder of the game. Like, they're just ridiculous. Like, they're going to have so much of the ball. And Haaland and Foden, neither of them have started tonight. You've got to think they're both going to come back into the side against Brentford. And how are they going to deal with those two? I mean, I'm still convinced Foden's been on a naughty step for something. I can't believe he missed another game.
It is a bit odd, isn't it? 3 league games in a row, when at a time when he looked like he was just cemented in that starting lineup. It is strange, isn't it? But significant that he doesn't start tonight. I mean, that does indicate that he's going to be in that team at home to Brentford this weekend, which is great news for those who held him through the leak, basically.
I mean, Foden isn't a guaranteed starter for England either. I mean, he's got competition on the right and the left. You know, Rashford's been in great form. Saka's playing well over there. So he's not going to be happy that he was playing every minute for City and doing really well. Then suddenly he's been dropped for 3 games. So you've got to think if he comes back into the side, he's going to have a bit of a point to prove. So in a way, even though I sold Zaha last week and I kind of wish I had him back, if Foden starts against Brentford, I'm optimistic of a big haul. Yeah,
no, you should be. I think it might smile on the Foden. And I mean, I've sold him, and now that makes me nervous. And I think that we looked at midfielders that are 1 week punts for game week 16. If you don't have Foden, that could be the way to go now, right? Because the fact that he hasn't turned up tonight and should indicate he starts at last in the league, and it would be just like FPL if he comes back in and he delivers a couple of returns. So that's an interesting development. I've gone Bournemouth Everton. I've gone 2-1 Bournemouth, and you've gone 1-1. We haven't indicated a garden centre game, but if that was live on telly, that's pretty close, I would say. But we won't go for that. I've got another one up my sleeve for that.
Oh, I would not be watching that game. You couldn't pay me to watch that game.
Liverpool Southampton. I've gone heavy 4-0 as a Salah owner and someone who might captain him. You've gone 2-0 comfortable. Not much argument there. It might be something in between. I don't see Liverpool struggling in this, but we've said this before, haven't we? And then they've gone and disappointed us. But don't know.
I think Hasenhüttl was kind of, this has been coming for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I think like we saw when Gerrard left and the reaction the Villa players had, I do wonder if we might see a bit of a reaction from the Southampton players as well. But I still think Liverpool will have too much of them.
We might do, but I don't know. I mean, like, it depends. I mean, if it's true that there was issues in the camp, then we should expect to see a bounce, because it's almost like the players do that, don't they? We saw it recently when Gerrard left and Villa won 4-0, and it was almost like the players were making a point, going, there was nothing wrong with us.
Yeah.
So maybe that will be the case. But if Southampton have got that up their sleeve and they've had a meeting about it, one place they probably don't want to go to prove it is Anfield. But we'll see.
Well, the issue is that you always felt that Villa had good players who were being kind of massively underperforming, whereas I look at Southampton's squad and I think you're lucky to even be in the Premier League, I'm afraid. Harsh, but not like you. But anyway, we'll move on. Talking of teams lucky to be in the Premier League, it's Forest at home to Palace. You've gone 2-1 Palace, I've gone 2-1 Forest. Yeah.
Spot the Forest fan.
I mean, I really want Forest to win. I just, unfortunately, I worry about Zaha and what he could do to you if he's playing up top. But yeah, I hope Forest can get something out of this game for many reasons. 2-0 Forest against Spurs. Wow.
Oh, blimey.
Lingard. Jesse.
There you go. That's what he needed. That's all he needed. That one goal. And I bet he's in the crowd now. As he doing his little dance.
Of course he is. Of course he is.
Why am I here doing this for you when I could be at the City ground watching? I know. And James from Planet FPL is there, and he said, "Are you going?" I said, "I can't get time off work." I couldn't get time off work because it would be a stayover, wouldn't it?
Don't you blame BlackBox?
Yeah, I know, but I'm sitting regretting it now. I could be watching a 2-0 over Spurs. I said to James, have a good night. You likely will, let's face it. But he's not having a good one, is he? I'll be texting him after it. Oh, actually, James gets a bit naughty after losing, so I'm not sure I want to text him. I don't want to upset him.
It's been naughty after winning as well. I messaged him after the Brighton game. We've fallen out.
Oh, really? Well, can't blame him. You are difficult to get along with.
Oh, I was in my message as well.
No, I'm glad I wasn't at that Brighton game with you for Forest. That's all I can say. Talking to James and Spurs, they're up next, home to Leeds. You've back to 1-0. I've gone 2-1. It's what we said, isn't it? It's like, even though that looks a good game, and even though we're backing Kulusevski and we're talking about Perisic, don't look at Spurs and think 3-0, 4-0, do we? They're not that team.
No, I think they'll be more than happy with a 1-0 win against Leeds, because they kind of know what can happen when Leeds decide to show up. They can make a game of it. I just think they just have a bit too much of them at home, and defensive. They should be able to deal with what Leeds throw at them. But again, it's an interesting game. It could end up being completely different to that. But you've got to back Spurs at home normally against teams like Leeds, I think.
Although they'll be absolutely demoralised after a schooling at the City Ground tonight, of course, so we shouldn't rule that out. I'm so excited. West Ham, West Ham, the old days are back. West Ham home to Leicester. You've gone 1-0 Leicester, I've gone 1-1. Not many goals in this.
No, it's going to be. I think it's going to be decided by one goal probably. I just don't particularly think West Ham are playing well, and I think Leicester are playing really well. So in the end, I'm waiting for Leicester to win.
Fair enough. Newcastle, Chelsea, both gone home win. I mean, 12 months ago, this would have been an away win all day, but at the moment, a home win looks almost on the cards without. There's no question, is there? I don't think the way we look. We saw the defensive data. I think they're going to win 3-1. You've gone 2-1, but there's no question that Newcastle at the moment are the form side, right? Other than City and Arsenal, of course.
Well, I think out of all teams at the moment, the one team you wouldn't want to play away from home is Newcastle.
Yeah.
I'm including Man City and Arsenal in that, because the fans are so up for it and everything that's going on. There's such a great identity, such a great feeling around the ground. And you compare that to Chelsea, where we're already seeing a few little cracks appearing in some of the tactics and the formations of the players. I think it's a mismatch in terms of that. And it's the kind of game that Potter could pull a kind of a miraculous result out of.
1-0 out, mate, I don't see it.
All the clouds are lifted, but I think this is exactly the game he wouldn't want going into the World Cup. So I think a Newcastle win is very likely. Wolves
0, Arsenal 2 is the prediction we make, both of us. I think that's an easy one. I just can't see Wolves scoring. Arsenal's defensive data was very strong, as we saw earlier. Their attacking data very strong, as we'd expect. I don't necessarily think that Arsenal are going to rout them, but I think they'll have far too much from them, and it could be Jesus who delivers. But I think we haven't talked about Saka too much, but he is coming good, and he's another player like Maddison. I'm thinking I actually really want him in the second half of the season.
Yeah, could be more for Arsenal in this. If they turn up, I don't rate Wolves at all. I think they've got problems. No recognised striker. They've got problems at the back. The midfield looks a bit shaky. They could just get completely overrun. I was annoyed when they scored a couple of goals against Brighton, and even I feel like that was them probably playing right at the peak of where they're at, and they still lost the game. So I think Arsenal could walk them over.
Okay,
should walk them over this.
And into Sunday, the Garden Centre game at 2:00. It's Brighton versus Villa. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's Fulham Man United. Both of these, arguably, you could be shopping for conifers.
I disagree in the strongest possible terms.
Okay. All right.
I think it's going to be the Mitrovic show against Man United. I've gone for a 2-1 Fulham in that. I know their defensive data has been good, but again, I worry about United playing against a team with a system like Fulham's, because they're going to get the ball to be back in the team. I was talking to Gianni earlier on his team reveal, and I think he said he's had this knock, Mitrovic, and I reckon he's had a chat with the people, and they've said, okay, we're going to rest you against City because we're not going to think we're going to get in from that, but we want you playing against United before you go off with Serbia. I think I've really struggled to deal with him. It's going to be a big test for Martinez and Lindelof particularly.
Maguire will play, won't he? Would he not play Maguire in this game?
He might. He hasn't played at all, though, Maguire. Is he in the league? When's the last time Maguire started?
I think he was on the pitch at the end, wasn't he, at Villa? But I would expect Maguire to be the one that they try and earmark to take care of Mitrovic. But I'd obviously back Mitrovic in that game, against. I think there's a goal in it for Mitrovic. I think United might have too much from him. I take Rashford into this game. Bruno is back. I hope that Rashford can get something from this, because he could be a differential for me. And we didn't mention him as a player to look at in Gameweek 16, but he fits that bracket. So yeah, this is I think both these games are tough to call. I do think Brighton will beat Villa. I don't buy too much into the Emery bounce just yet. So I've gone 2-0 there. You've gone 3-1 Brighton. And in the final game, 2-1 Fulham for you, 2-1 United for me. It says how difficult that one is to call, I think.
I don't know why I've backed to score 3 goals at home.
You're getting carried away.
I am. We're beating Arsenal tonight in the Cup. Talk about your Forest result. Mitoma has just scored for Brighton and we're beating Arsenal.
There you go. And you know, we shouldn't dismiss what a big indicator these League Cup games are for how good teams are. Exactly.
A wise man once said.
You want to take it back there? We're beating Spurs, or do you still say that?
No, I stand by it.
All right. Okay. Let's look at captain data. It's an interesting one this week because I think that we're obviously now expecting Haaland to start at home to Brentford. And normally that'll be a slam dunk. We captain him. Maybe it still is, but I think what we saw at Salah at Spurs probably edges him that little bit closer. And given that he's got Southampton, we talked earlier in the season about the captain conversation now comes down to when do you dare to go against Haaland? When do you dare to look at an alternative? I put it to you, the Gameweek 16 could be one of those game weeks. I
put it to you that it's not.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the screen for Pep's comments on Haaland, right? Maybe.
No, I didn't. I've taken that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of, I don't know, encouraging, but not. He kind of said he said he had, did he say ligament damage or he suspected ligament damage?
I'll bring it up here. Is this what he said previously on Pep?
There was a screen for what Pep said about Haaland.
Yeah, so it's up on screen now. This is what he previously said.
You sent it to me.
Oh, okay. No. I've a total confusion there. You've confused me completely.
That's the one.
Oh, that is the one. Oh, I just took it off the screen. Okay, yeah. So that was previous week, right?
No, that isn't the one. No, that isn't the one. You had a better one than that.
No, I don't know where it went. Anyway, let's go back to the captain data. Forget what we just did. Erase that on the podcast. Give me some editing to do. Thanks very much, Naz. Yeah. So, I mean, he starts right, and he's fit. Is basically what you're saying. And so you think that. So do you think that there's never any week to look against him, or is it just a fixture? Brentford at home, you think you can't do it for that one?
I think Brentford at home is the best fixture you could possibly have at the moment, really, for a team playing
Southampton at home's not far off.
Yeah, but I do just wonder if there could be a bounce on that game. I just can't see any way in which Brentford don't get spanked 3 or 4-0 in that match, whereas I think Southampton, with a new manager, they could put in the performance of their lives and only lose 1-0 or 2-0, and I'm still not entirely sure about Salah in that game, to the point in which I haven't got him at the moment, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to have him. But I'd be much more scared about not having Haaland in this game than I would be about not having Salah, I think.
Yeah, but I look at it and think, I'm 4 million in the world. Surely if I'm going to... I mean, like the captaincy last week went for me and I ended up beating you by 18 points. I'm not going to do that unless I start getting brave with the captaincy, I don't think. I mean, I've got to hit the target. Before. I know, but I look at it and think there's probably going to be 5 or 6 opportunities where another player has a fixture to rival Haaland, and this is one of them, right? How many more are there going to be? I mean, we'll do the analysis when we look at the second half of the season, and we'll try and spot opportunities to go against Haaland. And if I was higher up in the rankings, I wouldn't even consider it. But where I am, I've got to look for these chances, and I've got to think this is one. But I hear what you're saying. I expect City to beat Brentford by a decent margin, as I do Liverpool, Southampton. It's just whether or not the extra point for Salah, the clean sheet for Salah, maybe will that make a difference? It's very small margins. Is it worth the risk? You're saying no, aren't you?
I just think if you think Haaland starts, I think he's got the biggest ceiling potential of all players this week, because I think Brentford could lose that game the heaviest, and I also think he's got the best floor because he gets a goal every game he plays. There's just not really any reason not to captain him other than trying to be a bit different, and that doesn't really work because you've tried it before and it hasn't really paid off. So I think the only reason you don't go for Haaland is if you think he doesn't start or if you think he gets reduced minutes. But he hasn't got a World Cup to go for. No. And he's rested tonight and he came on and scored a penalty. He'll
I
start
know
that
it's depressing. It's just like when you come off a Salah return and you make up ground, it reminds you that that could be the answer. That could be the way that you get back into it. Consolidate at 4 million. It's really tough to do. It's really tough to do. Yeah, I mean, looking at the opposition data. I mean, it's funny. Chelsea stand out as the team you want to target over the season. And over the last 6 matches is absolutely crazy. So, if anything, if you've got a Newcastle player, you wouldn't consider captaining Almiron or Wilson over Haaland, of course, but you've got to expect good returns. The data here kind of supports the case for Haaland, doesn't it, over Salah, because Brentford do rate lower than Southampton in terms of their defence, in terms of defensive weakness. XG non-penalty conceded per 90 over the last 6 matches, 1.42 for Brentford, 1.32 for Southampton, and over the season Brentford 1.32 to 1.28. So this says Brentford's defence is worse than Southampton's, and like you say, there is the possibility of a new manager bounce or manager departure bounce. Is that a thing? Maybe it is, because the new manager's not in yet, but we expect them to be in soon. I think you're right. It's depressing, isn't it? Haaland captain then. Here we go. Let's look at your team for game week 16 at the moment then. And you challenged me to find something to do other than Henderson out for a new keeper. For the podcast...
Or De Bruyne to Salah.
Right. For the podcast, talk us through your team.
I will in one sec. The screen needs to update. Henderson in goal. Trippier, White and Castagna. Then De Bruyne, Foden, Trossard, Martinelli, Haaland, Kane and Wilson. Yeah,
there's not a lot wrong with that, is there?
There's not, is there? Because White's got Wolves. You've got to think there's a clean sheet there. Castagna's been fine.
Have you got any money?
0.4, I think.
So you can't do much with Castagna, can you?
0.2, not even that. 0.2.
You can't do much with Castagna. You're not going to sell Trippier for a one pump because you'll lose money. You can't really do much there.
In fact, I can't do Henderson to Ramsdale because I can't afford it.
Oh, so what was it? Henderson to what then?
Well, I don't know. That's what I mean.
Are you saying you can't do anything? Are you saying you're locked in with this?
Well, I've got enough to do De Bruyne to Salah. Right. Exactly the amount. So do I do that? That's the big question, I think.
I think I probably would.
Yeah.
I think I probably would, yeah.
Especially now Foden is we think is going to play.
It could backfire massively, but it's you, so it probably won't.
Really? You look at my last move.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good team. You're sitting pretty, aren't you? You're holding on to Foden. You're taking Trossard, as we mentioned, into the Villa game. Wilson should play. I guess you could hope that Wilson is more of a doubt for Chelsea, and therefore that might give you an option there. What would you do if Wilson was a doubt? You can't get to Núñez, so what would you go to Solanke? I guess. But...
I'd probably move him back to Mitrovic.
Right.
which would be a weird move. I couldn't afford Wilson to Núñez, which would be nice. Yeah, it's probably going to be De Bruyne to Salah.
Okay, all right. My team, I'm not looking too bad either. Raya in goal is the weakness, so maybe I need to keep a change. Diaz at home to Brentford, Trent at home to Southampton, Trippier at home to Chelsea, Creswell at home to Leicester, Zaha at Forest, Rashford at Fulham, Salah at home to Southampton, got the captaincy at the moment. That'll probably change. Martinelli at Wolves, Brentford, Haaland plays Brentford and Wilson plays Chelsea. I've got Williams on the bench as the first sub, and I've got Mitrovic on the bench as well, who arguably I should play. So I've got options here. I don't know if Diaz has played tonight. Has he? Can you tell me if he has played tonight? Let's have a look.
I can find out.
I can bring it up as well. Let's see. If he has,
I don't think.
Yes,
so.
He has. He started.
Oh, he's
right. So it's very unlikely he starts. So basically, it's going to be Diaz to probably Robertson. I've got the money to do it, so that's probably what I'll do. It was going to be Perisic, but after what we saw tonight with the team lineup, and I don't know if Perisic has gone off yet. I mean, he probably wants to get off that pitch because they're being absolutely overrun by a Forest team that's rampant. Then has he been subbed yet? Let's have a look. I don't think he has. No, he's not been subbed. He has. He's come off for Richarlison. So he did start in the attack, by the looks of it. Richarlison's come on. So there's a question mark. I think for certainty I'd probably go Robertson, particularly as I don't like that Southampton right-hand side, as you said. So that's my move. I'll probably go Robertson. I'll keep Raya because I can't take a hit for a goalkeeper change, and I want to do more than just swap my keepers, I think.
I like the triple Liverpool idea at home to Southampton with the double defence, the two attacking fullbacks and and Salah. Yeah. I like that.
And I think elsewhere, I don't want to take Zaha to the City ground because I'm going to the game and it's going to be a horrible watch. And so I've got to hope the Forest win 4-1 and Zaha gets the consolation. But don't know about those chances. We'll have to see. But yeah, I'm quite infused going into the final game. I'm hoping for something from Creswell at last. Hoping for Rashford to do something at Fulham. Hoping Zaha gets a consolation. And I have to hope my 2 Liverpool fullbacks, if that's what I go with, come in. So I don't think I need to push it with the Salah captaincy. So what you're seeing on screen will probably revert to a sensible Haaland captaincy. And then people will go, oh, you should have done it. You should.
We only have 4 players the same at the moment, which is interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
We talk about templates and teams all being the same, but yeah, ours are radically different.
Yeah, and so maybe I'll make up some ground again. Let's look at BlackBox leagues to round off, and I'm afraid bad news. Raptors back in the top 10.
Oh no, don't want that.
I know, but he had a good game week, 69 points. If look at all the leaders here, they all did well. Absolutely, Ross had a good game week, but not necessarily by the standards of the top 10 in the BlackBox league, because everyone did well, including the top manager Hayden Gray, who's 985, Matt Johnson second, 977, Atomi Resgui at 977 as well, joint second and third, and then it's Sindra Svendheim, who I bet is Swedish by that name. I may be wrong, but 975 as well. And then Svenning Arneson, who I bet is Swedish, but no, it could be could be Norwegian. Yeah, it could be. Just because you're in Sweden, I thought I'd theme it for you. That's all. But yes, so yeah, Ross back in the top 10. We don't like to see it, do we? We need him to immediately leave the building in terms of the top 10. But giving credit, he's flying, isn't he? I mean, when content creators do well, it's good to see, isn't it?
It is, and we tend to have one or two right up there. It's never us, but it's nice to see the others doing well. Obviously, we had Focal last year, and we've had Late Riser and other people kind of doing well. So yeah, it's great. Fair play, FPL Raptor. I mean, it's great for his channel as well. So if you haven't checked out Raptor's channel, get some advice from someone who knows what they're doing, unlike us.
Absolutely. Go to Oscar, go to Raptor, go to anyone but Slippers, because he doesn't need your traffic.
3-1 Brighton. We're beating Arsenal.
Oh well done. We 4-0 up against Spurs. I also credit FPL Zaha, who's in the audience again. Do you remember last week he said, "Oh, don't sell Zaha," and I said, "Oh, you would say that, FPL Zaha, wouldn't you?" And he was right. And it's only because I got a leak that I didn't sell Zaha, so I can't claim that was
relentlessly bashing me with it. So I'm not giving him any. Yeah,
quite right. Okay, thank you very much, Az. Another fantastic episode that I much enjoyed. It's going to be strange, isn't it, this break? But I'm looking forward to it in a way, because obviously I've not had a great season so far, and it's nice to not have a distraction over Christmas. There's some football tournament going on, but I don't think that would be too much of a draw. So I'm looking forward to Christmas. But we have got to look at when we come back, given that Game Week 17 is Boxing Day. A little bit awkward.
Yeah, crazy.
So we ought to look at that. But we will be back for you doing a show where we will start previewing Game Week 17 lineups, and it's a fresh start. It's like Game Week 1 all over again, and my God, I need that, don't I?
Well, Game Week 1 was awful, so I hope we get a better Game Week 1 V2.
Yeah, I think we had awful Game Week 1s, and I said, I'm 5 million in the world, but it's got to get better from here. It has a little bit, but not very much. That's fair to say. Right. Yeah, I know. So we'll be back before Game Week 17 with a show to help guide your choices. In other words, you won't do what we say. That will help guide your choices for Game Week 17 and beyond. And so we don't need to wish you a happy Christmas, because we'll be back in time for Christmas to do just that. But it's been a pleasure as always, Az. I'll miss you over the break. I'll be in touch. Certainly over the weekend, if Zaha comes in for me and not for you, I'll be sending you some tweets there, depending if Zaha gets the consolation or the winner.
I was going to say, at least if Zaha goes crazy, it'll be Forest that suffer. So you can't be that excited.
Yeah, but they'll be up against the rejuvenated J-Lings now. It's only a matter of time before I break out that sweatshirt and baseball cap that I should have bought.
Don't forget your promise if we win on Wednesday.
I tell you what, if he keeps us up, I'll wear J-Ling's suit. I don't care. I'll wear a complete outfit of J-Ling's.
Stop making promises you can't keep, Mark. You keep promising these J-Ling's attire, and they just don't seem to be appearing. It's very disappointing.
Well, you know what to get me for Christmas, don't you? Anyway, it's a good night from me.
Good night, everyone.